Hello, fifth and sixth graders. It's now time for our next English video. It is dealing with Unit 6, Week 2, and we are going to be taking a look at conjunctions this week. Now let's start off by defining what exactly is a conjunction. A conjunction is a word that can be used to join together words, phrases, or sentences. So when you join together, that means you're bringing them together. It's kind of like the glue in the sentence is what I'm talking about. And in this week, we're talking about two different types of conjunctions. The first conjunction is probably one that you have dealt with for a while. These are called coordinating conjunctions. A coordinating conjunction would be the conjunctions that you're probably used to using the most, which would be using the words and, or the word but, or the word or, when you're trying to combine either two or more subjects together. You could be trying to combine two or more predicates, which are verbs, or you might be trying to combine sentences together as well. Now, I'm going to take a moment just to identify. When you use the word and, that means you're trying to bring those two subjects or those two verbs together. So the word and means you're bringing them together. The word but means, okay, the first one is like this, but the second one is a little bit different. And that's when you'd use the word but in your sentence. So the first one is, I really like going to the store. And then you might have something, I don't like, I don't like bagging up the groceries. In this situation, I put the word but because the first one talks about something that you do like. And the second one talks about something that you don't like. So but in that situation would be a good one to use. If you use the conjunction or usually it signifies you have a choice. Like, do you want ice cream or cake for dessert? So in that situation, there's a choice. If you put and in there, do you want ice cream and cake? That means you're getting both. But the word or symbolizes a choice. So there is a difference between using these three. I want to give you a couple examples of what we're talking about. First one is Maggie and Deb are marathon runners. So in this situation, I'm combining two subjects together. There are two subjects. There's Maggie and there's also Deb, and both of them are marathon runners. So I'm going to say Maggie and Deb are marathon runners because this one here is combining two subjects together. Now notice when I combine two subjects together, I did not have to put a comma behind Maggie because I just have two subjects. So you just say Maggie and Deb. My next sentence, Katie will run 5 miles or swim 50 laps tomorrow. Notice with the word or, there's a choice. Katie's either going to do this one or she's going to do this one. And so it's going to be Katie will run or she will swim. So in this sentence, I have one subject, but there are two verbs. One of the verbs is will run. The other verb is will swim. So since I'm combining two verbs together, I'm going to use the word or. Again, noticing that there's no comma here because it's one subject with two verbs. My next sentence would be an example of when I'm combining two sentences together. Jerry wanted to see the Greek play, but he was ill. I use the word but because the first one says, well, Jerry really wanted to do this, but the second part tells us why he did not do it. So you can understand why I use the word but. But in this situation, you should notice that there's a comma before the conjunction. And that's because this is one sentence here. Jerry wanted. Okay. There's another sentence behind here. He was ill. So if I'm combining two sentences together, I do need to put that comma in there before I do the conjunction. Think of this comma as the period for the first sentence. So it's like getting rid of the period, putting a comma in there, and then putting your conjunction. So these would be examples of coordinating conjunctions. The word and is combining two subjects together in this situation. The word or is combining two verbs together. And in the situation here, the word but is combining two sentences together. So these are the coordinating conjunctions. Again, I'm sure you probably have used these in previous English lessons. The other conjunction that we're going to talk about today is subordinating conjunctions. Now, subordinating conjunctions, these are some examples of some common subordinating conjunctions, like the word because, or the word if, then, when, although, before, and after. And boys and girls, I want to make sure you understand there are more subordinating conjunctions than just these 7 that are listed here. The book just makes reference of them. These are words that you would use to start a dependent clause. Now, it's been a while since we talked about a dependent clause, but sometimes when you have subordinating conjunctions, you may have a dependent clause that you're trying to combine with an independent clause. If that's the case, you would want to use a subordinating conjunction to link them together. If I go back for just one moment, this sentence here, Jerry wanted to see the play, that's an independent clause. That's a sentence that can stand all by itself. He was ill is another independent clause. So if I have 2 independent clauses, I'm going to join them together by putting a coordinating conjunction in them. But if I have an independent clause and a dependent clause together, then I want to use one of these words to combine them together. And you don't always have to use a comma. I'm going to give a couple examples of what I'm talking about. Here's my sentence. He gets good grades because he studies. He gets good grades. That's my sentence. He gets good grades. This is my independent clause. My independent clause is he gets good grades. Because he studies is my dependent clause. And so since I have a dependent clause here, I'm going to use the word because in the situation. But notice there's no comma here. If you start a sentence with an independent clause, there's no need to put a comma when you have that dependent clause. This one's a little different though. When she speaks, everyone listens. Now this seems like a really short sentence, but there are 2 sentences here. The first one is when she speaks. This is an example of a dependent clause. So when she speaks, and then everyone listens, I have a subject and a verb. This is my independent clause. But notice this sentence is different than the first sentence because with the first sentence, we started with an independent clause, and then we finished up with a dependent clause. There was no comma here. But notice in this sentence, I started with a dependent clause, when she speaks. I finished with an independent clause, everyone listens. If you start a sentence with a dependent clause, you do need to put a comma here to show the separation. Okay, that's the one part that probably trips up a lot of students as we go through this lesson, is they sometimes kind of forget to put that comma there. And that comma is very important. That's telling me the whole first part is a dependent clause. The rest of it's my independent clause. Here's another sentence. I can go outside if I clean up my room. This sentence here starts off with an independent clause. I can go outside. I have a subject I and can go. There's my subject verb. I can go outside. Now I have a dependent clause that finishes up the sentence. If I clean up my room, I have a subject I and I have a verb clean. If I clean up my room. So I started the sentence with an independent clause. I finished with a dependent clause, and there was no need for a comma because I started with an independent clause. Although she made the shot, the team lost the game. I started my sentence, although she made the shot. This right here is a dependent clause because you just can't say that. Although she made the shot, can you feel how you need some more information? That's what gives it a dependent clause feel. It just means like you need more information. So although she made the shot, the team lost the game. The team lost the game is my independent clause. although she made the shot is a dependent clause. And since I started the sentence with a dependent clause, that's why I put a comma there. Let's do some examples together. What it's going to ask for in this is they want you to find where is the conjunction in the sentence. And then you're supposed to label it CC if that conjunction is a coordinating conjunction. They want you to label SC if it's a subordinating conjunction. Now, if you go back and remember, when you're dealing with coordinating conjunctions, there are just three words. You're looking for and, but, and or. If you see any one of those three, it's going to be a coordinating conjunction. All the other ones are going to be subordinating conjunctions. So let's take a look at our sentence first of all. Here we go. We have Stacy and Debbie made the cookies together. This here looks like we have a sentence. We have two subjects, Stacy and Debbie made the cookies. Two subjects, one verb. You should see you have the word and in the situation. So it says find the conjunction. The word and is the conjunction because it's combining two subjects. And the word and, we're going to write CC for coordinating conjunction. Next sentence. I can play video games when I finish my homework. I can play video games when I finish my homework. I can play video games. If I stop right there, doesn't that sound like a sentence that can stand all by itself? I can play video games. That means this right here is an independent clause. That means everything else is a dependent clause. And the first word of your dependent clause is always going to be the conjunction. So I can play video games, stop. When I finish my homework, that's my dependent clause. And the first word of your dependent clause is always going to be the conjunction. So when it says find the conjunction, we'd say the conjunction is the word when. And since it's the first word in a dependent clause, we would say that's a subordinating conjunction. Before we serve the cake, we should light the candles. Couple of things here. One, we should light the candles. That sounds like a sentence that can stand all by itself. Before we serve the cake, that doesn't sound like a sentence that can stand by itself. So that probably tells us that this part here is a dependent clause. And if you remember, whenever you have a sentence that starts with a dependent clause, usually you will see a comma here to separate them. So where is the conjunction in this particular sentence? The conjunction would be the first word in the dependent clause, which is the word before. And since it's the first word of a dependent clause, we'd call that a subordinating conjunction. Joel can make a saddle or build a chair. In this sentence, it looks like Joel is the subject, and Joel can do two things. He can make, he can build. Make and build. It looks like now we have a conjunction that's combining two verbs together. And it sounds like there's a choice between the two. So if there's a choice, that means we're probably looking at a conjunction right here. So my conjunction is going to be the word or because there's a choice. And the word or is a coordinating conjunction. My last example, Mary wanted a dog, but her family decided on a cat. Now this one can be a little tricky because there might be some people who say, "Ooh, Mr. Johnson, there's a comma. That means that this must be a dependent clause." Does it sound like a dependent clause? Mary wanted a dog. Does that sound like a sentence that can stand by itself? Yes, it can. Mary wanted a dog. That's a sentence. Her family decided on a cat. That also is a sentence that can stand by itself. So this right here actually has two independent clauses. Two independent clauses. So if I have two independent clauses, that means I need to have a conjunction combining them together. And that's where the word but comes into play. Because there's a choice here. So where's my conjunction in this sentence? The word but. And that would be an example. Oh, that should be a coordinating conjunction, not a subordinating conjunction. My apologies, class. This should be a coordinating conjunction. Mr. Johnson gets a check mark on that one. This would be a coordinating conjunction. All right, students, I hope that helps you to understand a little difference between the conjunctions, the coordinating conjunctions, and the subordinating conjunctions. If you have any questions on the lesson, please don't hesitate to go back and look at the video again, except for that one mistake that I made. I appreciate you just kind of skipping over that one. But if you have any other questions on the sheet, don't hesitate to ask, especially when you look at the backside of that sheet when you're talking about having to rewrite a paragraph. Don't be afraid to ask me questions on that, boys and girls, because there's a lot of words that you can kind of narrow down on the backside. So I'm here to help you the best that I can. So like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm here to help. If not, we will see you with the next video.